In this video, I'm going to give you 3 shadow work questions that are going to help you to do that integration work that you might be avoiding because you don't even want to look at that element of self. So the reason why I do this stuff and share these things with you is because I care about your visibility. I care about you showing up as you, as your authentically beautiful self. And the reason why I care about so much is because so many times I've had to conform, or I've chosen to conform, and sometimes I wasn't even like conscious of that conformity. All of these sort of childhood wounds came up, and I kind of was like, this part of me won't be accepted, so I'm not going to share that part of me. And it's actually sabotaged me in other ways because I've been frustrated, I've been angry, and I've really been disassociated to an extent in certain areas of my life because of the lack of awareness and having to do the shadow work that I avoided for so long. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 different questions that will help you to do that integration work so that you can be your authentic self, so that you can raise awareness of where that's coming from. And if you haven't seen the shadow work video that I've done before, then please go and watch the video. I've done it before, and it shows the video is my step-by-step guide on how to do shadow work the easy way. I recommend using some cards, but you don't have to, because I'm going to give you some questions that you can combine with the shadow work process I gave you in the last video. So do go check it out. I'll post a link to it maybe above or below this as well, so that you can easily access it. So first question is, in what area of your life are you playing small? So when I'm asking this question, it's about the weak parts, the parts where you feel a bit weak, or you almost dim your light. Even though people should be putting on their shades, you dim your light so that they feel comfortable. Even though you was born to make other people uncomfortable because that's how you help them expand, where in your life are you kind of not doing that? Where are you playing small? What area? I mean, we can look at like life coaching areas, right? We're talking about perhaps the area of your finances. We're talking about maybe in your area of your career, in the area of your relationships. Where are you dimming yourself just to be accepted by others? Think of the wheel of life. They've not fully embraced how amazing you are. So where in your life are you, yes you, playing small? So that's the first question. So you've got that? Good. Second question, which is actually part B of the same question. If you could name or draw what that looks like, what playing small looks like, what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it sound like? What do you normally say when you are playing small? I remember a friend used to always, whenever she had an inner critic talk, the inner critic would almost sound like the wicked perhaps you've got that separate person that kind of comes out. Perhaps your inner critic has a certain voice, and the voice is quite creepy to an extent, or perhaps it's quite childlike, and you might need to do some inner child work, which is always recommended before shadow work for different reasons, which I'll explain in a different video. But the point here is, what does that look like? What does that small part of you look like? I mean, give it a name, give it a face, give it some feelings, give it some thoughts, because then you can kind of maybe start to feed it at something that's going to be much more nourishing, that's going to be helpful. So you no longer play small, and you feel much more empowered. Because oftentimes when you are playing small, it's because you feel disempowered in some way, and we need to figure out what that is about. So that's the second question, right? Kind of from the first, about you creating that visual, especially if you're a visual person. Really helpful to create something visual. If you're an auditory person, then it's great to hear what's that person sound like. If you're a kinesthetic type person, perhaps you can say what's that person do. And if you are, we've done auditory, we did kinesthetic, we did visual. If you like smells, then perhaps it's like, what do you smell when that happens? What's the aroma? You know, what is the aroma? And any other learning styles that you can think of, do honor it and create that disempowered person. It could be a thing that you've associated with, and write it down, draw it down, and then you can start to work with it. Once you're kind of aware of these things, it's real easy to then shift and reframe once you know what it is. Now, the second question or awareness exercise when it comes to shadow work is, what positive traits do people always say about you? What positive traits do always people say about you? And the reason why I'm asking you for positive traits is I can compliment my best friend for yonkers and he will literally like just be like, shut up. So my question is that you know these positive traits, but how many of those positive traits do you have trouble accepting? How many of those positive traits do you have trouble, talking to you, have trouble accepting? Because that's part of the integration work you want to be doing. You want to be bringing it in. You want to be saying, I accept my enthusiasm. I accept my passion. And I accept my eccentric ways of being, because that's an awesome trait. So what do you have trouble accepting that is probably a positive trait that you just like saying, that's not me? Thanks for saying that, you're being polite, but that's just not me. So what are these compliments that you kind of be like trying to avoid? Because our brains always focus on the negative. That's why our brains are wired. That's why we have to always rewire them with meditation and mindfulness, because oftentimes we're looking at the negative. We're like negative attractors. We're trying to like, where's the negative? I want to see it. When we should be like saying, we want to attract positive because we are positive people. And when a negative experience happens, we know that it's a negative experience. It's not our identity. And there's a difference, right? Sometimes we're taking these negative experiences and we're saying, this is who we are. We failed at something, so we're failures. No. A negative experience or just this experience is not our identity. So we need to remember that. So the positive and negatives. What's the positive that you are having trouble accepting about yourself? What do you need to disown? Okay, there's those two questions, and I'm not going to put them in the comments or the description, because that means that you're not watching, and you need to watch the video in order to gain the knowledge. Okay, third question, and there's so many questions we could ask, right? Is what are your triggers? What triggers you? What triggers you? What do you get angry and defensive about? What do you like pet peeve? What is it? What is it that triggers you? Is it people shouting? Is it people because if you're hyper vigilant and somebody kind of shouts, and they're not necessarily shouting at you, but they're shouting, what normally happens when you're hyper vigilant is you're kind of like shocked and you're kind of looking out for the next thing that's going to happen. And so the question is, are you triggered or angered or defensive about the very thing you need to be kind of saying, how can I start to honor this thing? How can I start to address it? How can I start to look at it? So what is that thing? And it's an interesting one, right? What triggers you? Because you could go around all day long and just notice all the triggers. It doesn't have to be like you're sitting there, you're probably thinking, I don't know, nothing triggers me, I'm fine, I'm peace, I'm zen. But that might not be the truth. So what is triggering you? Be an investigator, be a detective. In the next 24 hours, write down all the things that trigger you. And it doesn't have to be big triggers, it could be small triggers. Like, what really annoys me? Urge this list, right? I absolutely dislike people who want to like tear you down for doing something that they're too afraid to do. They got nothing nice to say. Got these accents coming out, They got nothing nice to say about what you're doing. They're not contributing to the conversation. They're consuming, and then they're coming with their nonsense. I don't like trolls. Not a fan. But you know, that's a trigger point for me. So then how do I learn? This is the work that you would need to do, yeah? How would you learn to look at your triggers and find lessons in them? See, I've given you a little bit of a tool that you can use to overcome that. So when you answer these questions, these 3 questions, it's going to help you to really integrate the shadow, to almost embrace who you are and what you've been avoiding. And now I've got some shadow work questions that might be even more in depth for you. So if you want to go deeper, I'm going to post a link below. If you're on Facebook, then it's great because it's on Facebook Messenger, where I'm going to be sending you daily shadow work questions for free so that you can figure out exactly the integration work that you need to be doing, so that you can turn the integration work into oneness. So you don't feel separate. You don't feel like, you know, these labels, which are for jars, people. Labels are for jars and not for people, by the way. These things are not stopping you from living your best life. These labels, you know, I'm dyslexic, I'm dyspraxic, I'm autistic, I'm ADHD. All of these things are to help other people to understand what they are. They're not for me to own and say, hey, put me in a box, because I'm not in a box. I don't want to be in a box, and I can get out of the box. And so you've got to remember, most of the time when you've ever been labeled as something, it's to help another person feel a bit more educated. But ultimately, it's not to help you to be restricted. You are free, and you can choose to be free whenever you want to be free. And so this shadow work stuff is about you being much more visible in who you are, your truth, your essence, because there is no transformation from this stuff without implementation from the information. So click the link below. You'll be able, don't know why my finger did that, go in. Click the link below. You'll be able to find the information. It's going to be below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like if this has been helpful to you and has helped you to continue on your quest to live your authentic truth and to shift, heal and expand. So go out there, be celebrated, not just tolerated. Click the link and do that shadow work.